she can't get near the patriarchy, the sexist males who run the church. So she says, I'll sneak through the crowd and just touch his garment. And she does. And at that moment, Jesus whirls around and says, who touched me? How would you feel if you were that woman? Ah! I'm dead. And instead, what does she find? She says, Jesus says, come here. And he puts his arm around her and he says, men, listen. I haven't found faith like this in all of Israel. And he says to her, be well. Can you feel, Texas A&M student, the hands of Jesus on your face saying it's okay? You're not an outcast anymore. Can you feel that, gay and lesbian people? Jesus saying, I'm God, and I'm here to tell you they're all wrong. The Samaritan woman, 5 divorces. Outcast. She's the only person in the history of New Testament literature to whom Jesus said, I am Messiah. He trusted the secret of his lifetime with that outcast Samaritan, wrong nation, outcast divorce, 5 husbands, outcast woman, outcast, living with another man with whom she wasn't married, adulterer, outcast. He sat on a well and talked to her, and his disciple said, what? What in the world are you doing with that woman? And he said, we're having a theological discussion. Join in and get a clue or go away. All through his life, Jesus reached out to the outcast. My favorite story of all. I read a little into it, but forgive me. You'll have to decide when you read the Greek whether it's true or not, okay? That's the rules here, right? A young centurion from Rome is an outcast in Israel because he's the occupying force, right? If you read the literature of Rome, you know that a lot of these centurions were gay men. And they often carried their partners with them in the retinue. Often. It's very common. Now, picture this. The centurion has a servant home sick on his bed. He wants Jesus. He's heard that Israel has a healer, and he wants Jesus to heal this servant. But he can't get near Jesus because that's not the rules, and so he shouts out across the crowd, excuse me, I have a servant. Now read the Greek. The word for servant in Greek is invariably doulos. In this text, it's pais. It means my special friend. It can mean my beloved. Is at home on our bed. Read it. And tell me how you feel about that moment. Jesus said, good. Now that Texas A&M student can really see how I feel. So he says, yes, I'd love to come to your home, centurion, and I'd love to heal your servant. And the centurion says, thinking about all the pictures he'd have to turn around, why don't you just heal him long distance? And Jesus says, okay, I'll do that. Be healed. And from that day, that centurion was reunited with the one he loved. Outcast. Texas A&M student. Hear this. Jesus is God at work in the world, reaching out to everyone who feels like an outcast. Brothers and sisters in this church, you have joined in as Jesus' arms to reach out to us. Do you know how happy that makes God feel? And when you reach your arms of love out simply to say, you're welcome here, you are being Jesus in this town and in this place. The same day the newspaper announced my coming to your city, I wonder if you noticed the story in that paper on the same page of another young gay man who had killed himself, a teenager. 1 out of 3 teenagers in this country who kills him or herself is a gay or lesbian kid who is so overwhelmed by the toxic rhetoric, is so terrified by what the response to his life is going to be, he lies down and dies. Jesus came to reach out to the outcast and say, outcast, I love you, I created you, I want you to be safe. We were in New Orleans. I was about to speak to a banquet. People began to whisper. I said, "What's wrong?" And they said, with tears in their eyes, these gay and lesbian leaders, "Another high school senior honor student has just killed himself." And I said, "Tell me the story." And he said, they came after being told by his parents that he was not acceptable, and being told by his priest that he was a sinner and that he was sick. He went to a funeral home in downtown New Orleans, spread a plastic sheet, and shot himself to death with a shotgun after leaving a note that said, "I don't want to be any more trouble to anybody else." Suicide is rampant amongst us. You don't know how many we have to bury because they've heard so many times that God doesn't love them. Texas A&M student, please, before you pull the trigger, look deep into the eyes of Jesus and hear God say, "I have come to widen the circle and to bring in the outcasts. You are the people of God, and you will transform the world." Amen.